Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, his hands resting on the cold steel of the command rail. The stars beyond the viewport shimmered brighter now, not distant pinpricks but suns with weight and promise. For 3 long years they had crossed the void between stars. Behind him, sealed in cryopods, 50,000 souls slept, dreaming of green fields, open skies, and a new beginning. The New Horizon was more than a ship. It was a floating city, kilometers of steel and titanium, humming with the heartbeat of nuclear engines. Families, engineers, doctors, farmers, soldiers, all of humanity's fragments sealed together in one ark, sent away from Earth not for exploration, but for survival. Jake had seen the Earth burn. He remembered oceans rising, nations fighting over scraps of soil, skies blackened with storms. Humanity had clawed its way to the stars not because it was ready, but because the Earth no longer gave them a choice. This time, he thought, staring at the planet in the distance, we are not going back. Captain, a voice interrupted his thoughts. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Brady stood at his side, holding a tablet tight against her chest. Young, sharp-eyed, brilliant, she was their bridge to the unknown. A linguist fluent in 12 Earth languages before her 20th birthday, now trained to speak to beings no human had ever met. She swallowed nervously. Long-range scans are picking something up. It's not what we expected. Jake frowned. Define not expected. Lisa hesitated, then pressed her tablet. The screen projected an image across the command deck, glowing dots, orbital patterns, structures too organized to be natural. Cities, highways of light cutting across the surface, fleets of ships moving in perfect arcs. Civilization, Lisa whispered. Captain, there are people down there, thousands, millions, maybe billions. The bridge fell silent. For centuries, humans had wondered if they were alone. They dreamed of it, feared it, argued about it in books and stories. Now, after years of travel, the answer shimmered before their eyes. Jake's chest tightened. Have they noticed us? Not yet, Lisa said, though her voice was thin with doubt. But our ship is enormous, they will. Jake nodded, steadying his voice as he pressed a button on his chair. The ship's speakers crackled to life. His words carried through every deck, to every sleeping family, to every soldier checking their gear. Attention, this is your captain. We have arrived at our new home. He paused, tasting the weight of the next words. But we are not alone. There are others here already. I want everyone to stay calm. We come in peace, and we hope they feel the same way. They did not have to wait long. Within hours, the aliens came. 3 ships approached slowly, gliding like silver phantoms against the dark. They did not bristle with weapons or shields. Instead, they shone with a soft glow as though light itself bent to embrace them. Where human ships were built thick and scarred, armored against the void, these vessels moved like dancers. Jake's pulse quickened. He could feel every eye on the bridge waiting for him to decide. Shuttle prep, he ordered. We meet them halfway. Lisa's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her headset. Captain, what if they don't want us here? Jake managed a thin smile. Then we find out the hard way. The shuttle detached from the New Horizon, carrying Jake, Lisa, and 5 carefully chosen delegates, a scientist, an engineer, a medic, a soldier, and an ambassador who had once spoken in the United Nations before it dissolved into chaos. As the shuttle glided through the silence of space, Jake's palms grew damp. He had fought battles before, faced death in the skis over a dying Earth. None of that compared to this. This was not war. This was history. The alien ship loomed ahead. Its hull shimmered with crystalline panels, each glowing with soft pulses of light, like the rhythm of a heartbeat. When they docked, the shuttle door opened into a chamber of light, and air so pure it felt wrong. And then they appeared. The first were tall, slender beings whose skin looked like living crystal. Light danced through their bodies as though they were carved from gemstones. Graceful, elegant, they moved like flowing water. Their leader stepped forward, his crystalline face refracting starlight into colors Jake had no name for. I am High Arbiter V. Thylon, a melodic voice said, though no mouth had moved. Their translator device flickered with light, bridging words across species. We welcome you, travelers from the void, but we must know, from what world do you come? Jake swallowed. His voice felt small in the vast chamber. We come from Earth, 3rd planet of our sun. We traveled far to find a home for our people. The name fell heavy in the air. The crystal-like Zapirians froze. Behind them, 2 other alien delegations stirred uneasily. One was insectoid, chitin armor, clicking mandibles, multifaceted eyes that shimmered with fear. The other was aquatic, water-filled suits carrying beings with luminous fins and gills. All three delegations stepped back. Their faces, though alien, carried an emotion Jake understood instantly. Fear. Earth, Vithylan repeated, and his voice trembled. The Death World. Lisa blinked. Deathworld, what do you mean? The Arbiter's crystalline eyes darkened. Your planet is legend, storms that tear continents apart, seas that rise to swallow cities, beasts with teeth and venom that should have killed your ancestors 1,000 times. Fire, ice, poison skis, no life should have survived there, and yet you did. He looked at Jake with something between awe and horror. You are not supposed to exist. Jake tried to speak calmly. Yes, Earth is dangerous, but it is also beautiful. We survived because we learned to adapt, to work together. We are not just survivors anymore. We are explorers. We want peace. But the other aliens were already murmuring among themselves. Their insected companion clicked its mandibles sharply. Survivors, yes, but also killers. The stories speak of endless wars, of weapons that burn worlds, of people who fight even when there is no need. The aquatic being's luminous fins dimmed. We heard whispers. Humans, they said, beasts in flesh, monsters that clawed their way out of a nightmare world. The chamber grew cold. Jake felt his chest tighten, but he forced his voice steady. Yes, we fought wars, we built terrible weapons, but we also built art, music, families. We are more than violence. Dr. Emma Ross, the ship's scientist, stepped forward. If I may, she said carefully, perhaps I can show you our biology so you understand us better. She pulled up diagrams of the human body. At first, the aliens listened with curiosity. But as Emma explained how humans could survive extremes of heat and cold, how their bodies healed wounds that would kill others, how they endured hunger and thirst longer than most life forms, their expressions turned darker. To us this is strength, Emma said softly. To us, one of the insected Corvani replied, this is horror. You are built to endure pain, to inflict it, to outlast us all. You are predators. Jake's throat went dry. Everything humanity cherished as resilience sounded monstrous in alien ears. Finally, Vithylan raised his crystal hand. His voice was heavy with sorrow. We cannot allow you to settle here, not in our system, not near our children. The stories of Earth speak of monsters, and now, standing before us, we see those stories are true. Lisa's eyes burned with desperation. Please, we're not what you think. Give us a chance. Let us prove. But the Arbiter shook his shimmering head. You must leave within one cycle, or we will defend ourselves. The chamber fell silent. Jake felt the weight of 50,000 lives pressing on his shoulders. Dreams of green fields and open skis crumbled like ash in his hands. He forced himself to nod. We will go. Hours later, back on the New Horizon, the mood was grim. Children asked why the pretty aliens didn't want to play with them. Parents gave no answers. Officers stood quiet, their pride broken. Jake stared at the stars in silence. They had been called monsters before, but never like this. Then Admiral Brooks entered the bridge, his weathered face tight with unease. He handed Jake a data slate. Captain, sensors picked something up. On the screen, a fleet of ships moved between the stars. Dark shapes, massive and unnatural, swallowing the light around them. Hundreds of them, moving fast, moving like hunters. Jake's chest went cold. How long until they get here? 2 weeks, Brooks said grimly. Maybe less. The bridge fell silent. Lisa looked up from her station, her voice trembling. Captain, if those are who I think they are, the aliens are already doomed. Jake clenched his fists. The choice burned in his chest. Run or become the monsters the galaxy feared. The silence on the bridge of the New Horizon was so deep that every breath felt like thunder. Captain Jake Morrison stared at the screen, the massive shapes crawling closer through the void. They didn't move like ships, they moved like predators. Magnify, Jake ordered. The image sharpened, though not by much. The vessels were vast, bigger than any ship humanity had ever built. Their hulls looked uneven, almost organic. They weren't gleaming with polished steel like the Zapirian cruisers. They were dark, scarred, and alive. Faint green lights pulsed within their bodies like veins beneath diseased flesh. Dr. Emma Ross leaned forward, her face pale. Captain, those aren't ships. They're organisms, bioforms, whole creatures shaped for war. Admiral Tyler Brooks crossed his arms. I've seen nightmares, but this is something else. Lisa Brady whispered, They can't be real. But deep down, everyone knew they were. Jake turned to Brooks, ETA. Brooks checked his readings. 2 weeks at most. If they keep this speed, maybe less. Jake pressed his lips together. Options. Run, Brooks said simply. Take the colony and get as far away as we can before they notice. The room was silent, but Jake could feel the weight of every unspoken thought. They could run, yes. They could save themselves, but that would mean abandoning billions of alien lives. Or, Brooks said after a pause, we stay and we fight. The word fight hung in the air like a ghost. The alien leaders weren't ready to hear it. Lisa spent 16 sleepless hours crafting a transmission in Zapirian light language and Corvani clicks. When the message was finally sent, warning of the fleet, offering human help, the reply came back cold. We thank you for your concern, High Arbiter Vithylon said through the translator. His crystalline face seemed carved from sorrow. But we will defend ourselves. We do not need monsters at our side. Jake slammed his fist against the console. Damn fools. They don't trust us, Lisa said quietly. They never will. Jake stared at her, then at the screen. When those things arrive, trust won't matter. Survival will. 2 weeks later, the galaxy burned. The Zapirian fleet gathered in orbit, 50 sleek vessels glowing with crystalline light. They moved like dancers, arcs of energy streaming between them in perfect formation. From the surface, millions of citizens lifted their eyes to the stars, watching their guardians prepare to fight. On the new horizon, the colonists watched too. Children huddled beside their parents, staring at the alien ships, whispering about angels in the sky. But Jake felt no comfort. His gut twisted. Those ships were beautiful, but beauty didn't win wars. The Devourers arrived like a storm. 400 dark leviathans burst into the system, blotting out starlight with their sheer size. Their bodies writhed with living tentacles, green acid dripping into the void. Their hulls pulsed with hunger, their tendrils reaching as if already tasting the planets ahead. The battle began instantly. Zapirian ships unleashed beams of pure energy, slashing through the darkness like swords of light. Explosions bloomed across the void. For a moment, it seemed as though the defenders might stand a chance. Then the Devourers struck back. Acid cannons spat streams of emerald fire, dissolving crystalline hulls like sugar in water. Boarding pods shot from their sides, attaching to Zapirian vessels with hooks and claws. Within minutes, screams filled the comm channels. Alien crews were dragged from their ships, torn apart alive. They're slaughtering them, Lisa whispered, tears filling her eyes. On the bridge, Admiral Brooks' jaw tightened. They fight too clean, too careful, they're dancing with wolves. The Zapirians fought with grace, but the Devourers fought with hunger. One by one, the defenders were ripped apart. Crystalline vessels shattered like glass under acid claws. Corvani pilots screamed through buzzing static before their ships went silent forever. Even the mighty aquatic Nethys cruisers, wrapped in bubbles of protective water, were pierced and drained dry. Within 6 hours, the fleet was gone. 50 alien ships reduced to glowing debris. Billions on the surface looked up at the night sky and saw not their protectors, but burning wreckage raining down like falling stars. On the new horizon, the colonists watched in horror. Mothers clutched their children. Fathers clenched their fists in helpless rage. Lisa buried her face in her hands. They didn't even stand a chance. Jake stared at the screen, his knuckles white against the command chair. His chest burned with fury, but beneath the anger, a heavier truth sank in. The aliens had been right about one thing. They weren't ready for monsters like this. But humanity was. The first desperate call for help came 12 hours later. Static filled the comms, broken by a trembling alien voice. Commander Cathari, one of the few Zapirian officers to survive, sobbed through the translator. People of Earth, we were wrong. They are killing us. They are eating our worlds, our children, our families, all will die. Please, we beg you, help us. We will do anything. The bridge went silent. Brooks spoke first. Captain, we could run, jump to FTL now and be gone before they notice. Let the aliens reap what they sowed. Jake didn't answer. He stared at the alien faces flickering across the transmission, faces once filled with pride, now drenched in terror. Then another message came. This time, High Arbiter Vithylon himself. His crystalline skin was cracked, his luminous body dimmed. Humans, his voice broke with grief. We know what we called you. We know what we said. But if there is mercy in your hearts, save us, please save us. Lisa's eyes were red. Captain, if we walk away now, we're no better than the monsters they think we are. Dr. Ross clenched her fists. I've analyzed the biosignatures. These things have destroyed thousands of worlds, trillions of lives. They won't stop, not ever. If we run, someone else dies tomorrow. The bridge waited. Jake rose from his chair, his voice steady but heavy. Admiral Brooks, summon the War Council, all senior officers, now. The council chamber was filled with tension. Around the table sat Brooks, Lisa, Ross, Chief Engineer Kate Williams, and Commander Sam Carter, head of the Marines. Brooks began with cold honesty. We have 200 ships. They're tough, armed, built for war, but against 400 devourers, our odds are slim. Carter leaned forward, eyes sharp. Slim isn't zero, our ships aren't pretty, they're built to kill. Dr. Ross looked uneasy. Killing isn't enough. These things are predators on a scale we've never seen. They enjoy it. Every part of their design is pain. They don't just destroy, they feed. Kate Williams cleared her throat, her voice low. There's something you should know, a secret. She unlocked a secure case and slid a file onto the table. Inside were blueprints, sleek bombs sealed in containment fields. Jake frowned. What are those? Kate met his gaze. Antimatter warheads, 50 of them. Earth Command gave them to us before launch, last resort only. The room went silent. Everyone knew what antimatter meant. A single bomb could erase a city, 50 could erase half a fleet. They'll call us monsters, Ross whispered. They already do, Brooks replied. Jake looked around the table. We have a choice. Run and live with the knowledge we abandoned billions, or fight and show the galaxy what monsters of Earth can do when they protect. Lisa's voice shook, but she met his eyes. If we run, Captain, we'll never find peace, not anywhere. They'll never forgive us, and maybe we won't forgive ourselves. Brooks placed both hands on the table. If we fight, many of us will die. Jake's voice hardened. Then we die human. The room fell into silence. Finally, Carter stood. His jaw was set like stone. I say we fight. Kate nodded slowly. Fight. Lisa wiped her eyes. Fight. Dr. Ross hesitated, then whispered, Fight. Brooks looked at Jake. What are your orders, Captain? Jake straightened. The weight of 50,000 lives, and perhaps billions more, pressed down on him. My orders, he said quietly, then louder, strong enough to echo through the chamber. We show them what kind of monsters we are. That night, across the new horizon, every colonist received the captain's message. Families huddled together, listening as his voice filled the halls. The galaxy called us monsters. They feared us because we came from a world that tried to kill us every day. They were right to fear. We are monsters, but today we choose what kind of monsters we are. Not destroyers, not killers, protectors, guardians. Soldiers prepared weapons. Engineers armed the hidden warheads. Mothers kissed their children goodnight, knowing many fathers would never return. In the silence of space, the human fleet separated from the colony's ship like wolves leaving their den. 200 vessels spread into formation, their engines burning white against the dark. And ahead, the Devourer Armada moved closer, hungrier, unstoppable. Jake stood on the bridge, staring at the nightmare fleet. His voice was calm, steady, final. All ships, this is Morrison. We fight at dawn. The human fleet drifted into formation like a pack of wolves preparing to hunt. 200 ships, some sleek and armed for war, others converted mining barges and freighters reinforced with crude armor plates. Each one carried people who had chosen to fight instead of run. On the bridge of his flagship, Captain Jake Morrison studied the enemy through the main viewport. The Devourer Armada stretched across the void, vast and endless. 400 living warships, their tentacles twitching, their acid cannons dripping poison into the emptiness of space. They looked alive. They looked hungry. Report, Jake said. Admiral Brooks stood beside him, grim as ever. All ships in position. First wave volunteers are ready. Jake's eyes narrowed. Volunteers. Brooks' jaw tightened. Mining crews, mostly. They want to make the first strike. Said they'd rather go out hitting something than wait for their families to be eaten. Jake's throat tightened, but he didn't argue. He knew these people, survivors of Earth. They had been scraping a living from hostile soil and broken cities long before the stars ever called to them. Patch me through, Jake said. The comms hummed. Across 200 ships, miners, engineers, soldiers, and civilians heard their captain's voice. This is Morrison, you know what's coming. The galaxy calls us monsters, and maybe they're right. But today we get to choose what kind of monsters we are. Those things out there, they've slaughtered billions. They will slaughter billions more if we let them. We can't save everyone, but we can make damn sure they never forget the day they met the children of Earth. Remember, we don't fight like they do. We fight like survivors, mean, relentless. And when we strike to kill. He paused, letting the silence carry his words. First wave, show them how humans say hello. Major Ryan Davis, commander of the converted mining fleet, grinned savagely as he sat in his patched-up cockpit. His ship was nothing elegant, a bulk mining vessel retrofitted with extra armor and a fusion bomb bolted to its core. He knew exactly what he was flying, a weapon with his name on it. All right, boys and girls, Davis said over the comm, time to make Earth proud. 20 ships surged forward, their engines burning white-hot. They didn't weave or dance like the Zapirians. They didn't try to conserve ammunition or minimize losses. They charged headlong at the largest devourer vessel in sight. The alien monster opened its maw, a gaping hole lined with jagged teeth, glowing with sickly green light. Tendrils whipped forward, trying to snare the incoming humans. But the humans didn't flinch. Davis slammed his throttle forward, eyes locked on the beast. For the 3,000 worlds you devoured, he growled. Here's Earth's answer. His ship hit the devourer head-on. The fusion bomb ignited. The explosion lit space like a newborn star. The shockwave rippled across the battlefield, tearing open the devourer's hull in a spray of acid and flesh. Massive chunks of living armor spiraled into the void. The beast thrashed, then went still. For the first time in its history, a devourer had been slain. The other 19 mining vessels followed suit, slamming into different targets with reckless fury. One by one, they exploded like suns, ripping holes through the enemy's front line. The devourers howled. The sound wasn't carried by air but by something deeper, a psychic vibration that rattled human bones and made stomachs churn. But it didn't matter. The hunters had just been wounded. And humanity had drawn blood. Second wave go, Admiral Brooks barked. Commander Sam Carter led the attack fleet. His ships weren't pretty either, fast, brutal strike craft bristling with missiles and railguns. Unlike the Zapirians, Carter didn't waste shots on weapons or engines. He went for the unthinkable. Target their nurseries, Carter ordered. On the scanners, the Devourer nursery ships loomed in the rear, vast, swollen vessels carrying their young. To most species, they would be off-limits. Children were sacred, untouchable. But humanity remembered the wails of alien children begging for help, the burned cities, the whispers of 3,000 worlds consumed. There was no mercy today. Human strike craft swarmed the nursery ships like hornets. Missiles tore through swollen flesh. Railgun rounds punched holes the size of houses. The first nursery ship burst open, spilling glowing larvae into the void where they shriveled and died. The devourers screamed in rage. The psychic howl was so sharp that human pilots bled from their noses and ears, but they didn't stop. That's for every child you ate, Carter snarled, unleashing another volley. The galaxy had never seen war like this. Dr. Emma Ross worked feverishly aboard her lab ship. She had spent days analyzing the devourer biology, mapping their nervous systems, studying their weaknesses. Now she had created a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had imagined. Nanomachines, clouds of microscopic constructs disguised as dust, designed to attack nerves, amplifying pain signals until the victims were consumed by agony. It was not a weapon of quick death, it was a weapon of suffering. Her voice trembled as she reported in. Biological payload ready for deployment. Jake's answer was immediate, do it. The lab ship released its weapon. A glittering cloud drifted into the battlefield, invisible against the stars. Devourer ships inhaled it with every breath. The effect was immediate. The monsters convulsed, their bodies writhing in spasms of agony. Their formations shattered as pain rippled through their hive minds. Some rammed into each other, tearing their own tentacles free in blind frenzy. The human fleet moved through the chaos like blades. Boarding teams, go, Colonel Steve Parker commanded. Human Marines launched in drop shuttles, attaching to the Devourer hulls like ticks. Plasma cutters roared as they sliced through organic armor. What they found inside was worse than nightmares. The ships weren't just alive, they were prisons. Cells lined the fleshy corridors, filled with alien captives from dozens of species. Many had been kept alive for years, tortured, broken, consumed slowly. Their cries echoed through the darkness. The Marines didn't hesitate. "No prisoners," Parker ordered. "Burn everything." Flamethrowers roared. Grenades turned tunnels into firestorms. Marines stormed command centers and flooded them with nerve gas, then executed anything that moved. The Devourers were powerful in close combat, claws, fangs, thick armor, but they had never fought humans before. They had never faced soldiers who turned corridors into kill zones, who used fire and smoke and traps like art. Humanity fought dirty, humanity fought to win. On the flagship, Lisa Brady listened to the alien transmissions. Across the system, the Zapirians and Corvani watched in shock as the humans unleashed war like nothing they had ever seen. "They're calling it the cleansing," Lisa whispered, her voice trembling. "They've never seen anything like this." Jake didn't take his eyes off the battle. "Good, let them remember." Engineer Chief Kate Williams had her own mission. Deep within a Devourer command vessel, her team planted the antimatter charges. "Charges set," she reported, her voice steady despite the sweat dripping down her face. Jake gave the order. The explosion erased the Devourer flagship in a burst so bright it seared the eyes of anyone watching from orbit. The shockwave rolled across space, scattering the enemy fleet. For the first time in history, the Devourers were not hunting. They were fleeing. "Pursue them," Jake ordered. "Not one survives." The human fleet surged forward, striking down crippled vessels, tearing apart wounded stragglers. Hunters became prey. The void filled with wreckage, acid, and screams. Hours later, the last Devourer ship tried to hide behind a moon. A single human missile found it. The beast dissolved in silence. The galaxy's nightmare was over. Jake stood on the bridge, staring at the burning wreckage. His crew was silent. Many were grieving. Nearly 3,000 humans had died in the fight. But they had won. "All ships," Jake said into the comm. His voice was quiet, heavy with exhaustion. "Scan the field, leave nothing alive, not a single trace." Lisa wiped tears from her eyes. "Captain, the aliens are transmitting. They're trying to understand what happened." Jake's jaw tightened. Tell them it's finished." Lisa hesitated. "And tell them who finished it." Jake's eyes were hard as steel. "Tell them the monsters of Earth kept their promise." Far below, on the surface of the Zapirian world, millions of crystal-skinned beings stared at the night sky, watching the impossible unfold. The Devourers, nightmares that had haunted their legends for thousands of years, were gone. Erased by the very monsters they had feared. For 3 days, the wreckage of the Devourer fleet drifted across the void like a graveyard. Twisted husks of flesh and steel spun silently through the dark, glowing faintly as acid leaked from ruptured bodies. The stars themselves seemed dimmer, as though the galaxy was mourning the countless lives consumed on those 3,000 lost worlds. The New Horizon floated among the debris, its engines low, its people quiet. Inside the colony ship, the mood was strange. Families wept for the 3,000 humans who had died. Soldiers carried the bodies of their comrades through narrow corridors, flags draped over cold shapes. Children whispered questions their parents could not answer. But alongside grief, there was something else, something heavier. Fear. Not fear of the Devourers. They were gone now, wiped from existence. The fear was of themselves. They had fought like demons. They had killed without mercy. They had used weapons so terrible they had been hidden even from their own people, and they had won. The galaxy had seen it all. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the council chamber, staring through the wide glass window at the drifting wreckage. Around him, his senior staff sat in silence. Admiral Brooks, Commander Sam Carter, Dr. Emma Ross, Chief Engineer Kate Williams, and Lieutenant Commander Lisa Brady, each one hollow-eyed from lack of sleep. The room smelled faintly of smoke and metal, the air heavy with exhaustion. Jake finally broke the silence. "Status." Brooks cleared his throat. "Enemy fleet destroyed, not a single Devourer vessel left alive." "Human casualties?" Jake asked. Brooks' voice was low. 47 ships lost, 3,112 confirmed dead. No one spoke. The number sat in the air like a curse. They died heroes, Jake said at last. Make sure their families know it. Dr. Ross shifted uncomfortably. Captain, the aliens are broadcasting, constantly, every channel, every frequency. They want to speak with you. Jake turned from the window. Let them wait. But the aliens did not wait long. On the fourth day, High Arbiter Vithylon himself arrived aboard the New Horizon. He entered the council chamber surrounded by guards of light and crystal, his once radiant body dimmed by exhaustion. The Zapirian leader bowed his head, a gesture of deep respect in their culture. Captain Morrison, he said through the translator device, we owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Jake remained standing, his face unreadable. We did what had to be done. Vithylon's crystalline eyes flickered uneasily. Perhaps, but the way you did it, we have never seen such methods. You erased them completely. No survivors, no prisoners, nothing left. That's how you kill monsters, Brooks muttered. The alien leader's gaze flicked toward him, then back to Jake. In 6 hours, you achieved what no civilization has managed in 3,000 years, and yet, your methods frighten us. Jake's jaw tightened. Good. The room fell silent. Dr. Ross leaned forward. Captain. But Jake raised a hand, silencing her. His eyes never left the alien arbiter. You wanted monsters, you got them, and we ended your nightmare. Vithylon bowed his head again, though his voice trembled. Yes, but now we wonder if such monsters will one day turn on us. Across the galaxy, the same fear spread like fire. Lisa spent her days in the communications hub, translating streams of alien transmissions. Messages poured in from dozens of species. Some offered thanks. Some begged for human protection. Others whispered warnings, their words trembling with terror. They're calling it the Great Cleansing, Lisa reported to Jake one evening. Her eyes were red from exhaustion. They say humans didn't just defeat the Devourers, they erased them, completely, no mercy, no hesitation. She set her tablet down, her hands shaking. Captain, they're terrified of us. Every government is asking the same question. If humans can destroy the galaxy's worst nightmare in a single battle, what else can they destroy? Jake didn't answer. He just stared at the stars beyond the viewport. In the weeks that followed, the Zapirians offered the humans land. Not just any land, the best planet in their system, a world of water and forests, its skies shimmering with 3 suns. They called it Seraphiz. Jake accepted, not with gratitude, but with caution. We will build there, he told the alien council, but on human terms. The colony grew quickly. Families moved down from the New Horizon, building homes of steel and glass beneath alien skis. Children played in gardens that had once belonged to others. Human laughter mingled with the crystalline songs of Zapirian choirs, though always with an edge of tension. The aliens helped, but they also watched. Every hammer strike, every wall raised, every weapon tested in orbit. Always the same question lingered in their luminous eyes. When will the monsters turn on us? Chief Engineer Kate Williams noticed it first. She oversaw the construction of New Terra, the human settlement on Seraphiz. The Zapirians sent workers and materials, but they never strayed far from their guards. Their crystalline faces smiled politely, but their bodies leaned away. They're afraid, Kate reported to Jake one evening as they walked the new streets. Children played nearby, their laughter echoing between fresh-built homes. They think we'll do to them what we did to the Devourers. Jake exhaled slowly. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Kate looked at him sharply. Fear doesn't build peace, Captain, it builds cages. Jake didn't answer. His eyes lingered on the children playing under the alien suns. He remembered the screams of the Devourers' victims, the begging voices on the comms. He remembered Earth, a world that tried to kill them every day, a world that had made monsters out of men. Sometimes cages kept people alive. Lisa Brady spent her days in the comms center, drowning in galactic politics. Messages streamed in from across the stars, 17 different species requesting human protection. Pirates, raiders, rogue warlords, threats the Galactic Council had ignored for centuries, now seemed unbearable after the cleansing. They all want us, Lisa told Jake, her voice weary. They've seen what we can do. They want the monsters on their side. Dr. Ross's reports painted an even darker picture. The galaxy has lived in fear for so long it forgot how to defend itself, she explained during a council meeting. When the Devourers came, most species just hid and prayed. Now that humans have shown them what real fighting looks like, they want us to handle everything. Brooks snorted. So now we're the galaxy's attack dogs. Jake rubbed his forehead, feeling the weight settle heavier on his shoulders. They hadn't come to the stars to police the galaxy. They had come looking for peace. But peace, Jake was learning, sometimes required monsters to keep it. 6 months after the battle, an unexpected visitor arrived. Commander Cathari, the Zapirian officer who had first begged for human help, stepped into Jake's office. Her crystalline body still bore cracks from the war, her eyes dimmed with grief. She bowed deeply before speaking. "Captain Morrison," she said through the translator, "the Galactic Council has reached a decision about your people." Jake looked up sharply. "What decision?" Cathari's voice was heavy with meaning. "They have created a new position, Guardian of the Galaxy. They wish to offer it to humanity." The room fell silent. Jake almost laughed, but the sound never came. "Guardian," he repeated. "That sounds like a children's story." Cathari's expression was grave. "It is not a joke. The Council is terrified of you, but they are more terrified of what happens if you leave. You have shown them that there are worse things in the universe than humans, and you have shown them that humans are the only ones willing to fight those things." She bowed again. "They want you to accept. They want humanity to stand between the galaxy and the darkness." Jake leaned back in his chair, staring at the alien commander. Outside his window, children played in the streets of New Terra, human and alien together, their laughter carrying on the wind. His chest tightened. Guardian, monster, protector, killer. The galaxy had given humanity a name. Now it was up to him to decide what to do with it. The council chamber of New Terra was silent. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the head of the table, the offer from the Galactic Council glowing in shimmering letters on the hollow display. Guardian of the Galaxy. The title looked almost absurd, like something from a child's adventure story. Yet the weight behind it was crushing. Admiral Brooks leaned forward, arms crossed. "It's a leash, Captain. They don't trust us, so they'll give us a fancy title and keep us on a short chain." Commander Sam Carter snorted. "Chain or not, it comes with resources, bases, supplies, allies. We'd have real power." Dr. Emma Ross frowned, her face pale. "Power isn't the issue. If we accept, we define ourselves by violence. We become exactly what they already think we are: professional killers." Kate Williams shook her head. "We already are that. The difference is whether we kill for ourselves or for others." Lisa Brady's voice was softer, thoughtful. "If we refuse, they'll fear us even more. They'll see us as unpredictable, uncontrollable, a monster without a cage." All eyes turned to Jake. He said nothing for a long moment, staring out the wide viewport at New Terra below. Children ran across newly built plazas. Human and Zapirian laughter mingled faintly, though even here, alien guards still watched with wary eyes. Jake exhaled slowly. "We didn't come here to rule, we came here to live, but the galaxy isn't giving us peace, it's giving us responsibility." Brooks grunted. "Responsibility's just another word for war." Jake turned back to his officers. "Then maybe war is the price we pay to protect peace. We accept." The message spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Earth had accepted. The monsters were now guardians. The reaction was immediate and divided. Some species celebrated, sending desperate pleas for aid. Others whispered warnings, stockpiling weapons in fear. The first test came sooner than anyone expected. 2 months after the acceptance, Lisa burst into the council chamber, clutching a datapad. Her crystalline translator headset flickered as she spoke. "Captain, urgent transmission from the Cathari Confederation. They're under attack by raiders, entire fleets burning colonies on their border." Jake frowned. "Pirates." "Not pirates," Lisa said, her voice trembled. "Slavers." The word tasted like ash in the room. Dr. Ross went pale. "I've read their reports. The Dravek Consortium, a cartel of mercenaries and traffickers. They raid border worlds, take entire populations, and sell them like cattle." Jake's hands clenched. "How long until they reach the next colony?" Lisa glanced at her pad. 4 days. Brooks looked at Jake grimly. "Well, Captain, time to prove if this Guardian title means anything." The human fleet moved swiftly, 50 ships breaking away from New Terra and burning toward the Cathari border. Jake stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars blur as the FTL drives carried them forward. His officers were tense but determined. "They're expecting pirates," Brooks said. "Small-time raiders, they won't be ready for us." Lisa's voice was quiet. "Captain, the Cathari believe this will be a rescue mission. They don't know how we fight." Jake's gaze hardened. Then they're about to learn. When the fleet dropped out of FTL, the Cathari system was already burning. Columns of smoke rose from the colonies below. Dravak warships, jagged things painted in blood red and black, circled the planet like vultures. Their holds were already full of prisoners, their engines burning with stolen lives. The sight twisted Jake's stomach. "Open a channel." The Dravak commander's face filled the screen, scaled skin, slit-pupiled eyes, teeth filed to points. He smiled, mocking. "Well, well," he hissed. "The monsters of Earth. I heard the stories. I thought you were myths. Now you come here dressed as guardians. You'll find no easy prey in the Dravak." Jake's voice was calm, steady. "Release your captives, leave this system. Do it now or I will erase you." The Dravak commander laughed. "Erase us? You think you can frighten me? The Devourers frighten me. You're just..." Jake cut the channel. "Admiral," he said coldly, "begin." The human fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. Dravak ships scattered in shock. They were raiders, not soldiers, used to easy prey, not disciplined fury. The first volley tore through 3 vessels, ripping them apart before they could fire back. Carter's Marines launched boarding pods, slamming into enemy hulls. The Dravak fought viciously, claws and blades flashing in the dark corridors, but the humans fought dirtier. Grenades rolled into choke points. Flamethrowers roared. Combat knives flashed in the dark. "No prisoners," Carter ordered. His voice was cold steel. "Every slaver dies." On one ship, Sergeant Nicole Hayes led her squad into the slave holds. Hundreds of Cathari huddled inside, thin, trembling, eyes wide with terror. One of them whispered through the translator, "Please, are you here to save us?" Hayes' jaw clenched. She nodded once. "We are." Behind her, the sound of burning Dravak corpses filled the air. Back on the flagship, Lisa listened to the comms. Desperate Cathari voices filled the channels, crying out in shock and awe. "They're calling us angels," Lisa whispered. "Angels of war." Jake's eyes never left the battle. Let them call us what they want, so long as the slavers are gone. Within 6 hours, the Dravak fleet was shattered, half destroyed, half fleeing into the void. The humans gave no chase. Instead, they turned their guns on the slaver camps below. Railgun fire leveled compounds. Orbital strikes shattered cages. Marines stormed the ground, cutting chains, pulling children from burning pens. By the time the smoke cleared, 20,000 captives had been freed. The Cathari fell to their knees, their crystalline eyes filled with tears. They kissed the boots of human soldiers, whispering thanks in voices broken with relief. And in the shadows, other aliens watched. Back on New Terra, Jake stood before the council once more. Reports streamed in from across the stars. 17 more species have petitioned for protection, Lisa said, her voice weary. Word of the Dravak battle is spreading. They're calling us the Guardians of Blood. Dr. Ross shook her head in horror. Do they not see? We're becoming exactly what they feared, a sword they can point at their enemies. Brooks shrugged. Fear or not, they're alive. That's more than they had yesterday. Jake rubbed his temples, the weight crushing down harder each day. He had seen the Cathari children clinging to human soldiers, crying with joy. But he had also seen the fear in their parents' eyes, the unspoken question, what happens when the monsters of Earth turn on us? He looked at Lisa, at Brooks, at Carter and Ross. The galaxy will never love us, he said quietly, but they'll respect us, and maybe that's enough. That night, Jake walked the streets of New Terra alone. The air was cool beneath alien suns, the sky painted in colors Earth had never known. Human and alien children laughed together in the distance. For a moment, Jake allowed himself to hope. Then Lisa found him, running breathlessly. Her tablet flickered in her hands. "Captain," she said, her voice shaking. "Urgent transmission from the Galactic Council." Jake took the pad, scanning the message. His stomach sank. The Council had heard of the Dravak slaughter. They were not pleased. The words burned into his eyes. Humanity has overstepped. Guardianship does not mean butchery. You will answer for your actions before the council, immediately. Jake closed the tablet, the alien stars reflecting in his hard eyes. So this was the game. The council wanted their monsters on a leash. But Jake Morrison had never worn a leash in his life. The Galactic Council chamber was the largest structure humanity had ever seen. A colossal dome floating above a star, its crystalline walls refracting light into 1,000 colors. Delegates from hundreds of species filled the tiers: insectoid, crystalline, aquatic, avian, reptilian. Voices buzzed, sang, clicked, and roared in a chorus of judgment. And in the center, under the eyes of the galaxy, stood Captain Jake Morrison. He wore no ceremonial robe, no diplomatic finery. Just the simple black uniform of Earth's fleet, the weight of 50,000 lives on his shoulders. Behind him stood Lisa Brady as translator, Admiral Brooks as silent strength, and Dr. Emma Ross, her face pale but defiant. The council speaker, a being of shifting light and vapor, raised its voice. People of Earth, you stand accused of violating the trust of this council. You were given guardianship, not license for butchery. At Cathari, you exterminated thousands without trial. You reduced prisoners to ash. You killed not as guardians, but as monsters. The chamber erupted in hisses, roars, and fearful murmurs. Words stabbed through the noise: butchers, devils, predators. Lisa's hands shook as she translated into English. Jake didn't flinch. He waited for silence, then spoke. His voice was low, carrying across the chamber like steel dragged across stone. You're right, we are monsters. Gasps rippled through the delegates. Jake continued. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. Fire, storm, famine, plague. Our ancestors clawed through hell, and Earth made us hard. It made us dangerous. It made us monsters. The insectoid Corvani delegation hissed. Then you admit it. You admit you are unfit for guardianship. Jake's gaze swept the chamber. Unfit? Tell me, where were you when the Devourers consumed 3,000 worlds? Where were your fleets, your armies, your guardians then? The chamber grew quieter. You hid, you prayed, you waited for death. And it was humanity, the so-called monsters, who stood and fought. We bled. We burned. We buried our own to end the nightmare you were too afraid to face. He turned toward the Cathari delegation. Their crystalline bodies trembled under his stare. At Cathari, we saw children in cages. We saw families being sold like cattle. You think we should have negotiated with slavers? You think we should have shaken their hands? No, we killed them, because that's what monsters do to predators. The chamber was silent now. Even the loudest voices held their tongues. Then slowly the speaker of the council flickered brighter. And what of tomorrow, Captain Morrison? When the galaxy offends you, when a species resists your guardianship, will you unleash your fury then as well? Jake's jaw tightened. We don't fight because we enjoy it. We fight because no one else will. But the council wasn't convinced. Behind closed doors in shadowed corridors, the debate raged. Some species demanded humanity's destruction. Others, terrified of losing their new protectors, begged to keep them. Lisa worked day and night, intercepting whispers, translating rumors. One evening she burst into Jake's quarters, her face pale. Captain, they're planning something. A vote, yes, but not just that. If it fails, if they can't strip us of guardianship legally, some factions want to strike militarily, to wipe us out before we grow stronger. Jake frowned. They're that afraid. Lisa's voice trembled. Yes, and some of the Zapirians may back them, even after everything. Jake felt something heavy settle in his chest. Betrayal was expected, but it cut deep all the same. The next day, the council convened again. This time the chamber felt different, colder. The speaker flickered high above. The council has deliberated. A vote will be cast. Guardianship of Earth shall either be confirmed or revoked. If revoked, humanity will withdraw from Seraphiz, surrender its weapons, and return to isolation. If you refuse. The words hung like a blade. If you refuse, everyone knew what it meant. War, the galaxy against Earth. Jake rose slowly. His voice was calm, but every word was edged with fire. You want to put us on trial? Fine, but make no mistake, we didn't come here to beg. We didn't come here for your approval. We came to survive. And if the galaxy would rather fear us than accept us, then fear it shall be. Brooks muttered under his breath, just loud enough for the humans to hear. They wanted monsters. Let's remind them why. The vote began. Delegations raised their voices one by one. The crystalline Zapirians, the insectoid Corvani, the aquatic Nethys. One after another, the word echoed through the chamber. Revoke. 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 Lisa's throat tightened as she translated. One after another, species turned against them. Old prejudices, old fears, all spilling out now that the war was over. Finally, the speaker's voice rang across the dome. The tally is clear. By a majority of votes, humanity's guardianship is revoked. The chamber erupted. Cheers from some, sighs of relief from others, fearful murmurs from allies too weak to protest. But before the speaker could finish, the floor beneath Jake's feet rumbled. Alarms blared. Red light bathed the chamber. The speaker flickered in confusion. What is? Lisa grabbed Jake's arm, her eyes wide with terror. Captain, incoming transmission. The council's central screen lit up. A vast shadow filled the stars. Not a fleet of ships, something bigger, something worse. Dr. Ross's voice cracked. Oh no, it can't be. The transmission cleared. A massive living fortress, larger than any devourer ship, loomed over a distant world. Its surface writhed with millions of tendrils, its mouth opening wide enough to swallow continents. The chamber froze in horror. A single alien voice whispered through static, its tone low and hungry. We are the devourer brood. You thought you killed us all, you killed only the weak. Now the strong have come, and we are hungry. The image cut. Silence drowned the chamber. Jake stared at the screen, his chest like stone. The devourers weren't gone. The nightmare wasn't over. And the galaxy had just stripped away its only shield. The council chamber was chaos. Delegates screamed in terror, their languages clashing into a storm of sound. Some fled the tears, wings flapping, claws scraping, crystalline feet scattering across the luminous floor. Others shouted demands for defense fleets, though everyone knew there were none left strong enough. Only the humans stood still. Jake Morrison's voice cut through the panic like a blade. How far? Lisa Brady checked her pad, her hands trembling. 48 hours until they reach the inner systems, less if they keep accelerating. Dr. Emma Ross swallowed hard. The readings are worse than before. Their biosignatures dwarf anything we fought. The first wave was scouts. These are the predators that hunt predators. Admiral Brooks slammed a fist on the table. And this council stripped our guardianship. Congratulations, you just killed yourselves. The speaker's vaporous body flickered with fear. Captain Morrison, the vote is binding. You no longer. Jake cut him off. Save it. You wanted us gone. You wanted us leashed. But the devourers don't give a damn about your politics. He turned to Brooks. Rally the fleet. We're leaving. The chamber erupted again, voices shrill with panic. You can't abandon us, shouted the Nethys delegate, water dripping from her breathing suit. You revoked us, Brooks growled. We don't owe you a thing. Jake didn't move. His voice was calm, cold, heavy with a decision that burned like fire. No, we don't owe them, but we owe ourselves. Lisa stared at him. Captain. Jake looked at every terrified alien in the chamber. We came here to be more than survivors, more than monsters. If we run now, we'll prove them right. But if we stand, if we fight again, maybe they'll finally understand what it means to have humans on their side. He stepped forward, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. You call us monsters, fine. But we are monsters who protect our pack, and whether you like it or not, the galaxy is our pack now. Back aboard the New Horizon, the fleet prepared. 200 ships had left Seraphiz. 150 remained after repairs, retrofits, and funerals. Engineers worked day and night, welding plates, installing weapons, prepping antimatter charges. Families kissed soldiers goodbye, tears falling quietly as they strapped on armor. Jake walked the corridors, meeting eyes, speaking to his people not as a distant captain, but as one of them. We may not come back, he told them, but we're going to make damn sure the devourers don't either. Kate Williams met him at the armory. Her face was grim. The antimatter stockpile is ready, 50 bombs, enough to burn a fleet if we get close. Brooks joined them, his voice low. We can't fight them head-on, Captain, not this time, too many, too big. Jake nodded. Then we don't fight head-on, we fight like Earth taught us, mean, clever, ruthless. 48 hours later, the humans met the brood. The void filled with shadows. Hundreds of titanic organisms blotted out the stars, their tentacles writhing, their maws opening wide enough to swallow cities whole. They pulsed with sickly green light, their bodies covered in jagged armor that looked grown rather than forged. Lisa whispered the only word that fit: hell. Jake stood tall on the bridge. All ships, this is Morrison. Today we fight the real Devourers, the ones who thought they were safe, the ones who thought they could break the galaxy forever. He drew a breath, his voice turning sharp steel. They were wrong, they never met Earth. The battle began like thunder. Human warships surged forward, launching waves of missiles and kinetic rounds. Explosions lit the void, ripping through the brood's outer ranks. But the Devourers pressed on, their acid cannons spraying torrents of green fire, dissolving human armor like paper. Ships died screaming, but the survivors pressed harder. Major Carter's Marines launched boarding pods, tearing into smaller Devourers with flamethrowers and explosives. Inside, they found horrors worse than before: vast chambers of cocooned prisoners, half-digested, their screams echoing in the dark. Marines wept as they burned it all, giving the captives mercy and fire. God forgive us, Carter muttered as his squad fought through walls of flesh. This isn't war, this is exorcism. Dr. Ross released her new weapon, an evolved strain of nanomachines, programmed not to torture, but to collapse nervous systems instantly. The glittering clouds spread across the battlefield. Where they struck, Devourer Titans spasmed and died, their vast bodies writhing before falling still. Kate Williams led the engineering corps in suicide runs. Old freighters loaded with antimatter bombs dove into the heart of the brood, detonating in bursts that tore entire leviathans apart. Every explosion painted the void with light brighter than suns. The aliens watching from distant systems whispered in awe and terror. They had never seen war like this, never seen beings who fought not just with weapons, but with fury, cunning, and sacrifice. But still, the brood pressed on. The largest of them, a fortress beast the size of a moon, moved steadily toward Seraphiz, its maw opening to swallow the world whole. On the flagship, Lisa's voice broke. Captain, if that thing reaches the planet, it's over. Everyone, humans, Zapirians, Corvani, gone. Jake's eyes hardened. Then we stop it. Brooks stepped forward. How, even with antimatter, it's too big. Jake's voice was quiet, steady. Not if we put it inside. The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what he meant. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. Captain, no, you can't. Jake gave her a small, weary smile. Someone has to. The New Horizon broke formation, its engines blazing as it charged directly toward the fortress beast. 50,000 colonists had already been evacuated onto escorts, scattered across the fleet. Only a skeleton crew remained, volunteering for the last ride. Jake stood at the command rail, his hands steady, his voice calm. All ships, this is Morrison, you've given everything, more than I ever had a right to ask. But this is the end of it. The galaxy will remember today, not the Devourers, not the Council, humanity. And they'll know that when the monsters of Earth fight for something good, nothing in the stars can stop them. Lisa's voice cracked over the comms. Jake, please. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them full of fire. Guardians forever, Morrison out. The New Horizon hit the fortress beast like a spear. The antimatter charges detonated in its core. The explosion tore the void apart. The fortress beast split open in a storm of fire and green blood. Shockwaves rippled across the fleet, shattering dozens of smaller Devourers, scattering the rest into chaos. When the light faded, the monster was gone. So was the New Horizon. Only silence remained. On the human escorts, survivors wept. Brooks, Lisa, Ross, Carter, and Kate stood together, their faces hollow with grief. But they were alive. Seraphiz was alive. The galaxy was alive. And the Devourers were no more. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy changed. The Council reconvened, but the tone was different now. There was no talk of revocation, no threats of war. Only silence heavy with respect. High Arbiter V. Thylon spoke the words slowly, his crystalline voice trembling. The galaxy feared you, Captain Morrison, and it was right too, but it also needed you, and it always will. Lisa translated, her voice breaking. Tears ran down her face, though she smiled through them. They're calling him the First Guardian. Years later on New Terra, human and alien children played in the plazas beneath three suns. Statues rose in the city square, not of kings or councils, but of a single man standing tall, his eyes turned toward the stars. The plaque read, Captain Jake Morrison, Monster of Earth, Guardian of the Galaxy. And across the stars, whenever the dark rose again, civilizations whispered the same words with equal fear and hope. The monsters will come, and this time they are ours.